This meeting to order. Moving to what is not actually the second item, but I have a person who wants to speak on an agenda item that's not on the agenda. So, Mr. Glenn Johnson, if you will please state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Glenn Johnson, 1109 Pecan Street. I won't take 3 minutes. I just want to say that I was kind of amazed that the agenda did not have a citizen comment section, and I understand that that maybe this was being considered a workshop, but state law has been changed effective September 1st, but y'all did pass an ordinance to allow the citizens comment, and that during this particularly important time when we're setting tax rates and the budget, in which the council has the best opportunity to affect the policy of the city, that the citizens ought to be encouraged to participate. And when they look at the agenda, I'm afraid that many people would say, oh, citizens can't speak. And I appreciate you allowing me to speak, but I just assumed that was an oversight, and that all the other meetings and workshops that are going to be held in the run-up to the approval of the budget will allow for citizens' comments or citizens to speak on that agenda, because that's very important to the citizens, and it's important to you to hear from the citizens as you set the budget. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, I'd like to address that if you don't mind, so that we're on the same page. When we made revisions to our rules and procedures, because we did have prior that in our workshops that we would be receiving information, we wouldn't take citizen comments. We changed that citizens could comment after the workshop presentation. So our understanding currently was that the new law that, as you stated, does not go into effect until September 1st, was that any citizen could comment on any agenda item. So to your point of if someone wanted to talk about the budget or the tax rate, that's item 2B, happy to have them comment. We didn't believe that the law is requiring an agenda item that said citizen comments, but we will double check that, and we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. But we believe that we were in compliance with the law as it passed by changing our rules and procedures to make sure that any citizen can comment on any item of the agenda.
Yeah, my only comment is that usually your agenda has a section saying citizen comment. This agenda did not have that, and so someone looking at it would say, oh, I can't come and speak, having not been here when y'all did the ordinance.
Yes, sir, I understand. And for clarity, when we have the citizen comment, it's specifically for items that aren't listed on the agenda, because exactly. So it's by definition, people are always welcome to speak on items on the agenda, and you specifically called out the budget, and we would never have that as a non-commenting workshop item. So I very much appreciate that, and we certainly want to be in compliance with the law. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry.
I just had a question. So am I understanding that on future agendas we will not have citizens' comments, or is it just on this particular one that we don't have that stated?
This is a meeting that we have that is required by law, and normally there's only one item on it, and it's to set when the public hearing is going to be held to discuss the tax rate. And so prior to Mr. Johnson making his comments, we had understood that it was not required as an agenda item, so we'll confer with the city attorney. But for all other standard agendas on our twice-a-month council meetings, there will always be a citizen comment agenda item, as there has been.
Okay, that's what my question was. We will do that because there is more than one item on tonight's agenda. Besides that, there's the 2A, which is a different one besides the budget.
That's correct, and it is listed as a public hearing, which by definition allows for citizen comment.
Okay, but I can understand why it would be confusing to citizens if they didn't see it in writing. They would think that they were not going to be allowed to speak. So I hope that in the future we will be able to have that on there. I'd like to see that.
Okay, absolutely, and we'll double check with the attorney. That wasn't the intention, but by definition, whether there is a citizen comment section or not, the law that passed Citizens are allowed to comment on any item on any agenda.
I understand. It's just that some citizens probably haven't kept up with the law to know that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other comments? Moving on to item 2A, we will be holding a public hearing and consider action to approve resolution number R 2019-65 of the City Council of the City of Bastrop, Texas, granting a variance to the Bastrop Code of Ordinances, Article 4.02.005, sale of alcoholic beverages, separation requirements from church, public or private school, or public hospital on property located at 928 Main Street within the city limits of Bastrop, Texas, as shown in Exhibit A, providing for a repealing clause and establishing an effective date. Ms. Land.
Good evening. So, 928 Main Street is Cripple Creek Wine and Gifts. It is located, one building off of the intersection of Chestnut and Main. All right. By policy, alcohol sales must be allowed by a zoning district in a permitted location, which gives some additional distance requirements and things not relevant to the separation requirements, and meet a 300-foot separation requirement. So this location is located within the form-based code, Historic Main Street Character Zone, which does allow for alcohol sales. The permitted locations is not relevant to this location. That's really outside the form-based code area where that's relevant. But it does not meet the 300-foot separation requirements. So TABC requires a 300-foot separation between the premises and a church, public or private school, or public hospital. And Calvary Episcopal School is located right across Chestnut Street, and this location is within 300 feet. State law allows city councils to grant variances to those separation requirements as they see fit. So that's why we're here today. All right, so here's an illustration of where Cripple Creek Wine and Gifts is located in relation to the Calvary Episcopal School property. It is 172 feet. We measured that both using software. We also went out, Matt Jones and I did, and field verified that. It's a little tricky considering, the property just to the north of this one is actually kind of L-shaped. So you kind of have to go through that one to get there, but well within the 300 feet. All right, here are the approval criteria that you may use to approve a variance if you choose. I'll give you guys just a moment to read through all of those. If you have any questions,
It hasn't changed since the
It
last
has
time
not
we've seen that
changed.
criteria. Okay.
No. All right. So this location is downtown. It's in a commercial area. The use is allowed. For this particular business, it is only a business that is sold. They're not changing anything about it. Sales of wine are already occurring. It's just a new TABC permit. Change in ownership requires a new variance. All right, recent variances in the area include Bastrop Beer Company, The Pit Stop, and Neighbors Kitchen and Yard, which, as you can see, surround this property and are also very close to the area. And all of those were approved. Public comments received prior to today, we had one in support. They were from 906 Main Street and supported the approval of the variance. And we received no information against. Any questions?
For clarity for the citizens, would you review why this didn't need to go to planning and zoning?
Yes. So it does not go to planning and zoning because the zoning allows alcohol sales. This requirement is a state requirement, and state law specifically gives city council the authority to grant variances to their requirement, and it is not a planning and zoning action.
So often we see this as a CUP and the alcohol
Right, and
sales, and this is not a CUP. This is the alcohol
Right.
sales only, and it's because the ownership has changed.
Right. So a CUP would be a conditional use permit. That is a zoning action that would determine whether or not the use is allowed. This is not determining the use. The use is already established. It's already allowed, which is P&Z's authority. This is a variance to a distance requirement of TABC, and the change in ownership requires a new TABC permit, which requires a new variance.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Council, any questions for staff before we open the public hearing? All right, we are officially opening the public hearing. Madam Secretary, do we have anybody signed up to speak at the public hearing?
No, Mayor.
All right, we are officially closing the public hearing. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Ennis?
I'm just moving to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Second.
from Councilmember Ennis and a second from Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rogers.
Yes. The motion passes 4-0, sorry about that, and is approved. Congratulations. Good luck. Yay. All right, moving on to item 2B, consider action to approve resolution number R 2019-68 to place a proposal to adopt a tax rate for fiscal year 2019-2020 on the agenda of a future meeting as an action item, scheduling 2 public hearings on the proposal and providing an effective date. Ms. Waldron.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. So we have received the certified tax rolls, and this is just an update of the assessed values that came from those certified tax rolls for tax year 2019, which is our fiscal year 2020. The new assessed value is $967,932,907, which is 7.8% higher than 2018 tax year. And this is just a table showing the past history of our rates and our assessed values. We have plugged in all of the information we have received, and we have come up with our tax rates calculated. Our effective rate for 2019 is 0.5322. The rollback calculation rate is 0.5704. The proposed tax rate that we're bringing forth is 0.564, which is our current tax rate. There will be no changes in the proposed tax rate. I do show the breakout of the M&O rate and the debt service rate. Those are consistent with the rates we had last year. Just to reiterate what the effective tax rate is, it's the rate that would generate the same amount of revenue as last year's based on the valuation of the same properties. And also the rollback tax rate is the rate, the maximum rate allowed without voter approval. So we're in between the 2 rates. The proposed tax rate would generate about $308,000 more revenue than the effective rate would. So because the proposed tax rate is higher than the effective or the rollback rates, we have to have y'all make this action so that we can publish the public hearings and move forward with the proposed tax rate.
So for clarity, the rollback rate is a set percentage above the effective rate, correct? So
Yes.
it sets the bookends for the tax rates that could be set without having a public election.
Right.
Of the 307,000, do you have any idea how much of that is new property?
Well, I have, it's around 22 million that's new valuation on that assessed value.
Okay.
The rest of it is just an increase from last year.
So I'm just trying to be clear that the $307,803 that you're talking about there, that's not all on existing property from the year before. That also includes property that's been added to the tax rolls?
Well, no, the
Or is that
307
stripped
is
down?
the difference between what, if we would have just gone with the effective rate, which is same property year over year.
Same
So
property?
we're generating 308 by
Okay,
going
on
with
the
the
exact
proposed
same
tax
property?
rate. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
But Mayor, to answer your question, the $22 million generated about $124,000 in new revenue.
In new, okay. All right, thank you. So tonight, in the discussion, should council choose to approve the resolution, they are not setting the tax rate, they are setting the 2 public hearings and instructing the city secretary to make the proper postings in the newspaper.
Correct.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Ms. Waldron? Councilmember Ennis?
Can you pull out that, I mean, the city manager gave us 124,000. You're telling us that that would be on top of the 307 or part of the 307?
Part of it.
Part of it? Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Waldron? Ms. Waldron, you may have a seat. We have 2 folks that have signed up to comment. Oh, I didn't see your light on.
I was just going to verify, we aren't setting the tax rate, we're just setting public hearings. I
That
just want
is
to
correct.
make sure I understood.
This is a proposed tax rate, so
Yes.
people know what they want to comment on, but the action we take tonight does not set that tax rate.
So state law requires that if the proposed tax rate is above the effective rate or rollback rate, this process is required by state law.
And the reason she always says above either the effective or the rollback is because if you have funky things happen to your evaluations, you can have
Whichever is
one
lowest.
end up being lower than the other. So that's why if it's above either one, we're
Right.
required to do those things.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Waldron? All right, the first person that we had signed up to speak is Glenn Johnson. Mr. Johnson, if you will once again for the record, tell us your name and address. You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Glenn Johnson, 1109 Pecan Street. I appreciate the difficulty that this council has in setting the budget and setting the tax rate. This city has deferred infrastructure improvements for a long time, and there's a lot of necessary expenditures that are required. But we haven't seen a budget yet. And at least the proposed increase is not like the city of Austin, which their city manager wanted to have the highest rate possible without an election, and then vowed that we will raise it again before the state law takes effect that would set the rollback. However, I think that with that knowledge that everybody that reads the Austin American Statesman knows about or listens to the Austin newspaper or TV shows, I would recommend that you set your rate at the effective rate, not have a tax increase. The 0.564 is a nearly 6% tax increase for the citizens of Bastrop. The property values have gone up about 4%, and that's why the effective tax rate goes down. The issue is there a need for this much more money in the budget? And we don't know because we haven't seen the budget, but I'm thinking that that can be cut out of the budget, and that otherwise there should be robust discussion as to why citizens need to be informed why they need to pay a tax increase to do what they need to do. And if it's just to do what should have been done years ago, like rebuild infrastructure, that may be acceptable. But new items, new taxes for new items, which I don't know what they are, but I've heard a rumor that, for example, we're going to have a video room that we can make videos. It may be that the people would rather have less taxes and buy a new TV set so they can watch the current council on Channel 10. But in any event, and I realize that we're not setting the tax rate today, but you are going to have a publication of a proposed tax rate. And my recommendation is be a hero. You will make headlines if the city of Bastrop does not increase taxes. That may make nationwide news of our city to not hide the tax rate by keeping the effective rate. But but going up 6% but keeping 6% lower, I bet you can cut that out of the budget, whatever it's going to be. And I recommend you do that and be heroes to the citizens of Bastrop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Since you brought up Channel 10 and watching city council meetings, I would just like to publicly comment that we are not responsible for the video quality at your home based on your vendor. All we do is transmit. They are required to give us a public station. They are not required to give us a good station. So, and that's actually for my husband, along with anyone else who is interested. We have the next person signed up to speak, and that is Herb Goldsmith. Mr. Goldsmith, if you will state for the record your name and address. We're happy to see you this evening, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, this is Herb Goldsmith, 1105 Pecan Street, Bastrop, Texas. First of all, I want to congratulate all of you on the hard work for the last year, 2 years, however long you've been in office, and on the job. I also want to congratulate Ms. Waldron, who I believe does a magnificent job. Reading the budget last year was nothing but a moment of transparency, and I really appreciate that. I just have a quick topic on the City of Bastrop 2019-20 planning calendar. It indicates that on August 13th, the council meeting would distribute the budget to council in work session and highlight major topics. Set date, time, and place of public hearing. Budget considered filed with the city secretary at that meeting. In my understanding of reading the fiscal policy and the ordinance, that means the public has the right to receive a copy of that budget. So I have 2 questions. Are we going to do this on the 13th, which is next Tuesday, as planned? And then that will give us more time to take a look at what's going on, address some of Glenn's issues, and also address your issue, Mr. Ennis, because you brought up a year ago that you wish the timelines weren't so short. I think this clarifies that, and I would appreciate that we follow our plan, and that after it's distributed to the city secretary, we can request it and start our own review. And that's truly citizen participation. Practice what I preach. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldsmith.
Mr. Goldsmith, you can request a copy, but it will be online.
Thank you, City Manager. So you're confirming on August 13th it will be online for everyone to see? Okay. All right. Madam Secretary, I believe that's all.
I will confirm it will be on the agenda, on the website after you get it. I'm not going to put it out there before you get it.
That's just because you want to keep your job. Okay, so August 13th is the agenda item. So we're confirming that we're adhering to the published calendar. And Madam Secretary, I believe that's the only folks we have signed up to speak?
Yes, Mayor, that's it.
Okay, Council, do you have any other questions for either Ms. Waldron or the City Manager regarding item 2B?
Just a quick comment.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson and then Councilmember Ennis.
One of the things that this council has been involved in and quite strong about is addressing infrastructure issues while being fiscally responsible. And I would sincerely hope that we will work to ensure that our budget reflects that fiscal responsibility.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Nelson. Councilmember Ennis?
I have 2 items, Mayor. I cannot remember the number, but maybe the city manager can, just for our citizens' edification. How much does it cost to pave a mile of street?
Well, the engineer in me will say, it depends on whether you're doing a squirt top, whether you're completely rebuilding, what kind of repaving are you talking about?
I'm just talking about something simple. Because for the first time I heard it, it was stunning.
Yes, we're all waiting for Trey to text the city manager the number so she can say it out loud. Because my numbers are from, I don't want to give you the wrong number.
I have $1 million in my head. Am I close?
Okay, but let's be clear, $1 million a mile?
Yes.
And how many driving lanes? For giving information, we got to give information. Okay, no one can hear you till you get to the microphone. You've been on vacation, but you still know you got to talk into the microphone.
That is at least 3 lane miles, I would think.
3, so that would be 1 lane each direction and a continuous turn lane.
That's correct.
Would be $1 million a mile,
Yep.
and that's probably 8-10 inches of base and 1.5 inches of asphalt.
Asphalt, correct.
Okay, does that help?
I'm only bringing it up because of it kind of highlights the squeeze that we remain in every year when we get to
Thank you,
this
Councilmember
point.
Ennis, and I
It's
think
extremely expensive.
it's also important to note that the project that we put out to bid came back $600,000 over budget. So this $183,000 would not even make up the deficit for one CIP project.
In fact, we have, Trey and I have a meeting tomorrow with the engineers from Walker Partner who are helping us with our street maintenance program. Because of the amount of work that is being produced in this region, the costs are off the chart. It's a supply and demand, and they have spiked so significantly that the plan we have in place, we cannot afford. So we're having to go tomorrow and regroup, to your point.
Thank you, City
Significant.
Manager. Councilmember Ennis, did you
The
you
other
still have the
question
floor?
I had was for Ms. Waldron. Can you give us that backup? It wasn't in our packet, the first 2 or 3 slides. And is that going to be online?
Yes, ma'am. If
Can
you,
it be?
Yeah, we can add it to the packet.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, I want to acknowledge Mr. Goldsmith's comment about the transparency of last year's budget. We filed for and received notice this week that we had a goal in our work plan last year to receive the Government Finance Officer Association budget certification for transparency. First time this city has ever won it, sir. We won it with that budget. Thank you very much.
Mr. Goldsmith, they can't hear you if you're not in front of the microphone. Councilmember Jackson?
Since I've been on hiatus from council, I was just wondering about, since this time frame, it seems a little shorter period of time that we have to actually work on the budget this year. Is it just my imagination, or is it about the same time frame that's normally used? It seems like we've had, with previous council, it seems like I thought we worked more toward the budget to prepare for the tax rate and all of that. Or
No, sir, we have adopted the schedule that was here and added to it. We actually start working on the budget throughout the year with specific items. We have a workshop in April. The city charter requires that I provide you a budget 30 days before adoption, so I have until August 30th by charter, or the 24th of August, I guess, which would be the date that you would adopt it. But we adopted the schedule that has been in place when I got here, and that is the first council meeting in August. We present to the budget, and we have actually added some workshops in addition to that schedule that weren't in place before, which will be the 21st and the 22nd. And if there's additional opportunities needed, we'll add them. But then we also talk about it at September 10th, which will be the first hearing, I believe, on the budget and the tax rate. First hearing is at the 27th. So we spend 2 months working on the budget.
okay, I guess you mentioned something about April, and since I wasn't here in April, I guess I didn't realize that there had been some previous discussion or something about the budget. So,
We spent the whole evening talking about the needs of the fire department, which will be the #1 funding mechanism
I do
in my
remember that
budget.
now. Okay.
And we talked about patrol vehicles and the need for our vehicle replacement fund.
I do recall it now. I was here for that meeting. I just had a lapse in memory on that.
And Councilmember Jackson, to the best of my knowledge, the budget planning calendar was not produced prior to 2017. There's been no record of having all of the dates in place prior. I think before it had always just been accepted that it would be discussed at the first meeting in August. That's when the budget would be presented, because that was in compliance with the charter.
Well, I kind of recall having scheduled meetings and things like that, but maybe they weren't public or they weren't out. But I somehow remember us having a calendar of budget items and things like that.
Okay, but you're satisfied with the budget calendar that we have now? I don't want to be ignoring you guys. Any comments or any further questions? Ms. Waldron, anything that we need clarification on? Mr. Job, you want to change your number? Are you sticking with $1 million? Stick with that. All right. Okay, Council, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve resolution number 2019-68 by Councilmember Rogers.
Second.
I have a second from Councilmember Jackson. Is there any further discussion? Madam Secretary, if you'll call the roll.
Councilmember Rogers,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Ennis,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you, council. The resolution 2019-68 is approved 4-0. And Mr. Peterson is not here. Mr. Jackson, would you like to take care of item number 3?
I would move for adjournment.
It is 7 p.m. and we are adjourned.